Hey guys, you know what's fun? Grave robbing! Also, it's illegal. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Hello folks, my name is Andrew Fantasia and welcome to Thumb Together. Today we're going to be talking about the new Tomb Raider reboot, Together. As always, if you enjoy Thumb Together or any videos I make on this channel, please feel free to give me some subscription love right down there on the subscribe button and like the video as well so I can continue making more videos for all of you beautiful people. Now, let's get down to some rating business because Tomb Raider is out. There's the old saying, I guess, it's not even a saying at this point, but there's the old thing where video game movies are cursed to forever be nothing more than mediocre. I think a lot of people would agree with me when I say that the current champion for the best video game movie ever made would be Mortal Kombat. And that's not saying a whole lot. So, did that record get broken by Tomb Raider? The answer is nah. Unfortunately, Tomb Raider is another video game movie that fails to deliver anything other than stock, forgettable action. You know, one thing I wanted to bring up before we get into this, I don't know if it's different in your hometown, but up here in Toronto, it is becoming increasingly harder and harder to buy movie tickets from a human being. Every time I walk into the theater, there's one human working the counter, and the rest is a bunch of those stupid-ass machines that are always breaking, and they force you to go to those machines. And, you know, I've been kind of weaseling my way to the human all the time, being like, look, I just want to buy from you so I don't have to deal with this freaking stupid thing. And last night, they actually turned me away and said, no, sir, you have to go buy at the machine. So congratulations, Cineplex movie theaters. You are taking us one step closer to Skynet. Honestly, I've never met anybody who has had a good experience with those machines. There's always some kind of error on them, whether it's a paper error or a screen error or a printer error or a, oh my god, why do these goddamn things even exist error. They are the worst. One of my talents is I'm very good at impressions, and I can do a note perfect, spot on impression of one of those movie ticket machines. Ready? Here it is. See? That was me not working, just like them. So let's get to Tomb Raider. Let's talk about this. Alicia Vikander is the new Lara Croft. It is no longer Angelina Jolie. I was not a fan of that original Angelina Tomb Raider. I remember seeing that way back in the day, and it was just bland and unforgettable, and I didn't even bother with the Cradle of Life. But I was pumped for this because not only is Alicia Vikander like, oh my god, she can raid my tomb anytime she wants. But not only was I looking forward to seeing Alicia Vikander don the very well-fitting garb of Lara Croft, but I was also looking forward to her bringing her skills, because she is a very talented actress. I was looking forward to seeing her bring her skills to this character, make this character interesting, and she did. She really did. She made Lara Croft fun and interesting, whereas Angelina was just, that movie came out in an era where people didn't care about interesting protagonists. People just wanted badass. And that's all that movie gave us was, whatever came Angelina's way. It was just like, oh, I'll deflect it. I will win everything I ever do because badass. But that's not what we got here. We got like a cool Lara Croft who was likable, and she was human, and she failed a lot, and she picked herself up and she tried again. And that's what made her cool. She was the best part of this movie. Not for the reasons you're thinking. I did enjoy looking at her quite a bit, but that's not why she was the best part of this movie. I was also looking forward to this Tomb Raider because it is a very specific adaptation of this game. This Tomb Raider game came out a few years back now. There's actually a sequel already. This is about 6 or 7 years old now. But this was a reboot that the company Square Enix made because they realized that nobody was playing their shitty-ass Tomb Raider sequels, so they rebooted it with actual thought and effort put into it, and what we got was, this is a fantastic game. If you've not played this, and you're a fan of, just action-adventure games in general, give this a whirl. It's probably redonkulously cheap now because of how old it is. This is an excellent game, and it's an origin story for Lara Croft. It's about how she becomes the Tomb Raider we all know and love, how she hones the skills that make her such a good adventurer, a good archaeologist. And unlike another game with an explorer on the cover, this game actually lets you, wait for it, explore. I know, right? Mind blowing. Like, who'd have thunk? Who'd have thunk? Walton Goggins is also in this movie. You probably know him if you saw The Hateful Eight. He was one of the standout characters in that. He plays the villain. His name is Matthias Vogel, and we'll get more on him later. But he did a good job. I like this guy. I like Walton Goggins. He's a great actor. He's got these intense eyes, man. When he looks at something and his eyes are wide, you're just like, "What are you looking at, Walton? I want to join the fun." He's just infectious like that. Dominic West is the other main player in this. He is Lara's father, Lord Richard Croft, and he's been missing in action for several years and presumed dead. Daniel Wu is the final principal member of this cast. He is a captain of a ship, and he's basically Lara Croft's sidekick. She hires him to take her to the island where all this crazy stuff is going to happen. And that's our main cast. It's a very small chunk of characters. But like I said, this movie did not really deliver any of the goods. It didn't deliver what we wanted. It didn't have that certain chutzpah that made it worthwhile. Basically, what I mean by that, without spoiling anything yet, is that this is just exactly what you expected from the trailers, but not in a good way. It's just a basic movie with nothing special about it. That is the best way to describe it. I really liked the opening scenes of the movie where it's Lara in London, kind of just living her life and trying to do her own thing. That was the best part for me. Getting to know Lara, getting to know what she's all about, and what she, why she's the way she is. As soon as the adventure starts, as soon as she gets on the boat and goes to this island, that's when everything just kind of tanked for me. Because at that point, it's literally like she goes to an island, she fights some stock villains, and a tomb gets raided. That's it. This is just one of those movies, man. It's just in one ear, out the other. I've already forgotten most of it. 9 months from now, when I'm doing the Fanny Awards, I'm probably going to forget this even existed. I'll probably be like, oh yeah, Lara was a thing, and there was a tomb, and that's all I remember. It's just so forgettable and so weak and watered down. It's just a watered down movie is what it is. And I remember the first Tomb Raider being very similar. The only difference is that at least this one has a likable protagonist. At least in this one, Lara is a relatable girl. You could be like, yeah, I get it. I get what she's going through right now, instead of just, oh no, look out, Lara, somebody's going to shoot you. No, they're not, because I'm badass. We don't have that, thankfully. So the plot of this movie is that Lara Croft is the daughter of a very wealthy businessman named Lord Richard Croft. He owns a giant holdings company, and they have like a manor, like a Bruce Wayne manor. But she is not living the high life. She's not, this wealthy gadabout. She's actually living in a small apartment, and she works as a bike messenger delivering food. She's got this inheritance, billions of dollars from her father, who has been missing for seven or 9 years. But she refuses to accept the fact that he's dead, so she won't sign off the papers to get her inheritance. And when she's about to go do that, when she finally gives in and is about to go talk to a lawyer and sign some papers, the lawyer hands her something that her father had left her, and it's like this puzzle box. And when she opens it, there's like a little clue from her father, and it leads her to a part of the mansion that she didn't know existed, where he kept all of his hidden notes and his hidden work, and basically his life as a adventuring archaeologist that he kept hidden from her. She suddenly discovers it and decides, I'm gonna pick up where my dad left off, and this was his last adventure, so maybe he's still on this island, so I'm gonna go find him. And that's the plot. And she tries to get to the island, she gets there, and the rest of the movie is her adventure on this island. And like I said, the adventure on that island is nowhere near as fun as the adventure of getting to that island. There's a great sequence in Hong Kong where she's trying to get this sea captain to take her to the island. And she arrives at the docks in Hong Kong harbor, and she's looking for this guy, and then she gets pickpocketed and stuff. If anybody out there is a Shenmue fan, the opening of Shenmue 2 is exactly this scene, like almost beat for beat, but I'll leave it at that. So she meets this captain, and she makes friends with him, and they have this really cool like back and forth scene where she's convincing him to go with her, and that was actually one of my favorite scenes of the movie, if not my favorite. But then after that, as soon as he revs the engine on that boat and they take off for the island, everything just kind of goes, and it just becomes a boring, by-the-numbers adventure where bad guys with guns chase her around an island, and there's just nothing really creative or exceptional about it at all. I'm going to jump into the spoilers right now. There's not a whole lot of them. Lara gets to this island, and there is a group of people who they work for a company called Trinity, which is some shadowy, like Illuminati kind of company that wants to get its hands on anything supernatural because it wants to be all powerful, even though it kind of already is. And Trinity has all these militia men on this island, led by Walton Goggins' character Matthias Vogel. And Matthias Vogel is as a stock villain can get. I mean, he's got like one line of dialogue that kind of makes him interesting. But other than that, he's just like, I want that tomb, and you're going to open it for me or I'll shoot people. And that's it. So, Lara is captured by him, and she gets away, and she's roaming around this island trying to figure out what to do. And then a few seconds later, she sees somebody in the trees, and it's her father. And her father is alive and well. Well, not well. He's kind of nuts. But he's been on this island for however many years he's been gone. And they find each other, and she's like, oh my god, you're alive. And he's like, oh my god, what are you doing here? He tells her, he's like, why, you should have burned my research, because he told her earlier in a video he left to burn all his research about this island. I suppose I should go into what this island is. It's just an island off the coast of Japan where there is an ancient Japanese empress, I think, named Himiko, who was supposedly a destroyer of life, and she would kill people. And so the only way for ancient Japanese people to keep themselves from being killed by this woman was to send her on a boat to an island and entomb her there so she could never hurt anybody again. Trinity wants Himiko's death powers, whatever they may be, so Richard Croft didn't want them to get their hands on it, and he told Lara to burn his research, and instead she used his research to find him. So now they're together on the island, and he's like, Lara, you should not have come here. I told you to burn my research. Now Trinity's going to get their hands on it. And she's like, nah, Trinity's not going to get their hands on it. And then a few minutes later, Trinity gets their hands on it. They get taken by the bad guys at gunpoint. And the very typical stuff happens where Vogel's like pointing a gun at her father. And he's like, Lara, you open this tomb or I'll shoot your dad because I want the tomb. The only saving grace was that the villain Vogel has this line of dialogue where he implies that he's been trying for years and years to open the tomb, not out of greed, not because he wants, fame and fortune, but because his bosses won't come and pick him up and take him home until he finds the body of Himiko. And he has a family back home, and he has children, and he wants to get back to them, but Trinity's upper echelon won't let him until he gets the tomb. That was cool. I like that, because it's not just your typical, I'm greedy, and I want this dead body for fame purposes. That was cool. That saved him from being a complete and utter disaster of a character. But they open the tomb, they go in, they find the body, and it turns out that there is no magic involved in this body whatsoever. Himiko was just a carrier of a horrible, almost Walking Dead-ish kind of disease that is inflicted upon skin contact. And when they unearth her body, the henchman guy who picks her up is like, oh no, I've got a disease, and he dies. It's a biological weapon still that can be used by Trinity, but of course Lara keeps them from getting the body, and she fights the bad guy, and she overpowers him, and the way she kills him is actually pretty fun, I'm not gonna lie. He's got a piece of Himiko's finger in his pocket that he's keeping to give to his boss, and he's trying to get out of the tomb, and she won't let him, and they're fighting, and eventually she grabs the piece of the finger, and she stuffs it down his throat and makes him swallow it, and, the disease eats him away from the inside out. That was a cool death, man. That's how you kill off a villain. Her dad sacrifices himself by blowing up the tomb so that nobody else can find it, and she crawls out. She goes back to London, and she signs the papers, and she's like, okay, I know my dad's dead now. There's a woman who is sort of like the Lucius Fox of this company, who's sort of taking, controlling the ins and outs of everything for her. And at the last second, for some weird reason, Lara discovers that this woman is the head of Trinity, and she's been pulling the strings all along. And then she's just like, I better do something about this, and she goes and buys 2 guns, and that's it. That's the end of the movie. The scene in the trailer where she's buying guns, and she tells Nick Frost has a cameo in this, by the way. She tells Nick Frost, like, I'll take 2. That's the last shot. So Tomb Raider went the route of Amazing Spider-Man 2 by actually putting the final shot of their movie in the trailer. When will we learn? This just felt like a swimming pool full of missed opportunities and full of just lazy ways out. The opening scene of this movie involves Lara. She's doing mixed martial arts because she's a fan of mixed martial arts, and she's fighting with this other lady in like a boxing ring. And the other lady puts Lara in a headlock. And Lara is trying to get out of it, and she can't. She's like, I can't get out of this headlock, and then she has to tap out. And she's all pissed off that she lost. And so, you would think, being an intelligent person, your mind would think, okay, eventually, during this movie, she's going to learn how to get out of a headlock. 2 times throughout the course of the movie, a bad guy puts her in a headlock. And both times, she breaks out of it without any trouble. And they never call attention to it. They never make it a moment and say, like, yes, she did it. She got out of a headlock. She overcame that weakness that she had. It was such a waste. There's a point, like, a guy's got her, and he's like, oh, I'm going to choke you because I'm bad. And she's just like, nah, I got away. But, like, it's not even, no focus is placed on it at all. Like, she flips herself out of the headlock. She doesn't even take a moment to be like, nothing. Not a thing. Another big disappointment was the puzzles. Puzzles are fun. I like puzzles. You probably like puzzles. Most people enjoy a good puzzle. And when you have situations where people are opening ancient tombs and going through, old structures, and there are booby traps and puzzles and whatnot. In a good movie, like an Indiana Jones movie or in like the Da Vinci Code, when there are puzzles to be cracked that would unlock, the next area of a temple or something, usually the audience is privy to the information. We know when Indiana Jones is walking through the Canyon of the Crescent Moon, we know that in the first room of that temple, only the penitent man will pass, because we heard that phrase from the Grail Diary. We know what to expect, and it's like we can go through the temple with Indy, in a sense. We can be right there with him and thinking, like, what does this passage mean? How do we overcome this? What did Jacques Saunier write on the floor? What happens if we unscramble those letters? We're right there in the middle of the action. Tomb Raider doesn't do that. The door of Himiko's tomb is this giant slab of stone with all these dials on it, kind of like the cryptex from the Da Vinci Code. And the dials all have to be turned in a certain way to open the tomb. We're never told what way that is. They get to the tomb, and the bad guy's like, open the tomb. And Lara's like, okay. It's open. We're just like, all right, I'll take your word for it, Lara, because I have no freaking clue what you needed to do that. And they get farther into the tomb, and there's another room with like a rhyming couplet on the wall or something, and the floor starts exploding, and they're like, oh no, we gotta get through this door. They start solving it really quickly, but like not in a way that we can kind of think with them. That's the fun of puzzles and things like this, is you can think alongside the characters. But that doesn't happen here. The floor is falling, and she's like, oh, what was that thing about life and death? And here, try this color. Here, try that color. Oh, no, it's this and that, because that's the color of life. Done. And we're like, whoa, easy. Slow down. This is a very short movie. You don't need to rush. You can take some time to explain how this puzzle works. But no, that's it. And then that's the only puzzle we get after that. 2 puzzles, and not a one of them was available to us. This is not a horrible movie, but it's just not a good movie. It is, like I said, gray and bland and unforgettable and devoid of anything that's even remotely fun or creative. At least after the first quarter of the movie. Like I said, Lara is a lot of fun to get to know. All her little adventures in England, just as a regular girl trying to live her life, are surprisingly much more exciting than her jumping around and opening doors with puzzles that we have not been privy to, because why get the audience in on the fun, right? I think at this point there's just like a person in Hollywood who just kind of sits in a corner. He's like the smoking man from X-Files, and you don't see him until he makes himself known. And if you get hired to write a video game movie, that's when he pops up and he's like, hey, make sure it's bland. Honestly, that's the only thing I can think of at this point, because how can we have had so many video game movies and not a one of them can be done even remotely well, except kind of Mortal Kombat? And even that was just like a really high-quality Power Rangers episode. So that is Tomb Raider. Thank you for raiding this tomb of unpleasantness with me. I hope you enjoyed the video. Trust me, you'll enjoy it more than you'll enjoy Tomb Raider. I just apologize that I'm not quite as pretty as Lara Croft. But hey, I've got plaid on. That's something.